I used to run this department, and now I'm an intern. My ex-husband's having a baby with another woman, and I have a really good man who loves some other version of me. Without my memories, I'm trapped in time. I need my life back. Healing people is the thing that I love most.
I suppose a love triangle in a kind of show like this isn't an unusual thing. I think ours is unusual in the sense that Amy only remembers one of the people from her love triangle, you know? And so now she's had the beginnings of this relationship with Jake, which her and Jake kind of jumped into very quickly. And yet there's a part of Amy that's still living in this 8 years ago's time and space. And so we end season 1 with, you know, the conflict and the real dilemma of that. And, you know, when we come back in season 2, I think part of where it's at for Amy is that it's not all up to her. You know, it's not all up to her who she gets to be with. These men have some agency too, and so that plays out. You know, Jake clearly loves Amy, but I think he also becomes a little more conscious that maybe this Amy isn't the same as the Amy that he first fell in love with. So there's something there. Michael has a baby in the first episode. His wife gives birth, and so he has a new reality that is concrete and real and much more important than, you know, his feelings. You know, children need to take priority. And so all of those things are kind of in a soup that we stir throughout the first few seasons. So we have a new character this year, played by the wonderful Felicity Huffman, and she is a doctor who we learn was Amy's mentor. So this is a woman who is, you know, has been Amy's champion throughout her working and professional career, and very different than other people in Amy's life. And one of the ways she's different in terms of Amy is that she doesn't think there was anything wrong with the way Amy behaved before she had her accident, you know? So Amy sort of woken up after her accident, and pretty much everyone was like, you weren't a very nice person, you know? You could probably work on that. You know, at some point in the first season, I remember Gina says, like, yeah, there are ways of coping you don't need to do again. Joan thinks Amy was fine, thinks she did the best she could in really difficult circumstances, and in fact became a phenomenal doctor, in some ways, despite or maybe even because of the circumstances she was in. She's tough. She is fierce. She is incredibly generous with her time. She's done a lot of work with a kind of Doctors Without Borders type of organization, traveled a lot, works all over the world, and I think it's just been fascinating to kind of get to examine what it is to be a woman in what would have been a very male-dominant field when Joan first came up, and how that's changed somewhat for Amy, how it changes for the younger generation coming up, because we also have a young intern, female intern, this year. So we sort of get this line of these three women, these three generations of women doing these jobs differently.
I play Dr. Joan Ridley, who's named after John Ridley, the writer-director. Just a little trivia. And she was Amy's med school teacher and mentor, and then became her friend. And She wants Amy to be the best doctor she can be, which is a pretty amazing doctor. She wants her to get back to where she was. My character takes the job as chief of internal medicine, which means she's Amy's boss. And Amy's very interested in getting her memories back. And in Joan's opinion, that is hurting her ability to be a doctor. So Joan has to corral her and point her in the right direction, or at least attempt to point her in the right direction. Molly Parker, well, I've admired her for years. I've always thought really highly of her, and so getting to act with her is a pleasure and an honor. It's weird coming on as, I'm coming on in the second season, so you're the new kid in school. And Molly Parker's been very kind and eaten lunch with me.
I think it's one that it's based in honesty and really genuine respect and love. And so I think from that point, it's kind of similar to our friendship, you know? It's like we as actors together, it's just a beautiful thing when you have that respect and you have that true, like, wow, I'm in awe of you and the kind of person you are. And I think Gina definitely sees her as an extraordinary doctor, but also as just a powerful woman and a loving woman. And her daughter's like her niece, Gina's niece, you know, so it's really family first. And then, you know, it's navigating all those questions that I think is what also makes Doc like really touch all of our hearts, is because they're questions that we all ask, right? Like, how are you a professional in this business, and then a mother, and then a partner, and then a friend? You know, as women, we take on all of these roles. And myself, I'm taking on all of those roles, and it's always a balancing act. Well, what's always exciting is like in TV, they bring someone and they're like, oh yeah, you've known them for years, you know? So that's what's like, it's like fun because very quickly you have to like commit to this feeling. And I think what we get is like a little bit more backstory on our beloved characters. You know, Joan has been a part of the person giving, you know, Amy advice. And I'm not sure, you know, when you're a best friend, you know, Gina's very protective of the choices that her best friend makes and wants her to be a whole human. And I think Joan might be a little bit more steering towards that. I'm focused on your professional career. I mean, she's her mentor, so it makes complete sense. But every part gets affected. You know, these things have tentacles. So, you know, she's skeptical. But the beautiful thing is that these writers are so great. They really are. Everyone's written in such a human way. So in one moment, I think Gina's just like, absolutely not. And then Joan says something and she's like, oh, okay, you might be right about that, you know? So we're gonna kind of tote that line, and I think all season we're gonna try to figure out, is Joan a positive effect on Amy's life, or is she not? Is she asking really tough questions that we don't wanna talk about? You know, and I think it's a great character to add to the season.